にへようこそ。ハーフライズ2、おまけページやっていきましょう。
Welcome to Half-Life 2, Episode 2. We are at the midpoint in our trilogy of episodes, which will conclude in Episode 3. To listen to a commentary node, put your crosshairs over the floating commentary symbol and press your Use key. To stop a commentary node, put your crosshair over the rotating node and press the Use key again. Some commentary nodes may take control of the game in order to show something to you. In these cases, simply press your Use key again to stop the commentary. Please let me know what you think after you've had a chance to play this, our latest installment in the ongoing adventures of Gordon Freeman. I can be reached at gayben@valvesoftware.com. I get about 10,000 emails each time we release a game, and while I can't respond to all of them, I do read all of them. Thanks, and have fun.
Starting Episode 2 in the crashed train has several purposes. From a story point of view, it establishes continuity with the end of Episode 1. But from a gameplay perspective, it allows players to reacquaint themselves with the basic movement controls in a safe, contained environment. Our earliest design had the player scrambling out of the wreck high above the canyon and forced them to make some precarious jumps to get to ground level. After seeing most playtesters fall to their deaths numerous times in the first 5 minutes of gameplay, we optimized for perceived rather than actual danger.
Gordon, thank God you're okay. Hold on a sec. I'll get you out of there. Let's hope this still works. Stand back. Here goes. Wow. I forgot what a kick this thing has. Here, you take the gravity gun. You're better with it than I am. When I couldn't find you, I got... I know. I shouldn't have worried. Well, we should keep moving. I'm sure the Combine haven't forgotten about us. I heard Vortigaunts a few minutes ago. Maybe they're still around.
The destruction of this rail bridge was our first opportunity to showcase our new cinematic physics technology. We wanted to convey to the player the scale of the train wreck, and the delicate balance the damaged bridge was left in as a result. The structural deformation of the twisted metal was modeled with the help of surface-based spring networks, driven by particle systems. In this case, we actually passed a rail car through the bridge and solved the deformation dynamically. For the collapse, we used an offline large-scale rigid body simulation, a technology typically reserved for the visual effects industry. In this simulation we have about 750 moving parts, calculated with coarse convex hulls. These in turn drove a skeleton network to which the high-resolution geometry was skinned. Particles were then emitted from the transforming geometry and calculated in-game.
Having established the super portal as a threat in the opening vista, we decided it would make a useful landmark as the player traveled toward White Forest. In Half-Life 2 and Episode 1, we could count on the Citadel being visible in many of the maps, casting its shadow over the world. The super portal plays the same role in Episode 2, anchoring the player in a world while providing them with visual updates on the developing threat. The addition of beam effects and portal storm shockwaves help bring the portal to life and make it more than merely a static background element.
I hope we don't get many more.
For the ominous mass of clouds which swirl above the destroyed citadel, we devised a shader effect to give the impression of depth and complex turbulence. The actual geometry rendered for this effect is a single flat polygon, but through a series of pixel shader effects, which composite several texture layers, we are able to achieve the impression of realistic churning clouds. In the offline pre-visualization work that we did to initially define this effect, we developed a very realistic simulation with more than 30 layers of clouds. With real-time shader techniques, we were able to achieve an equivalent look while maintaining an interactive frame rate.
The view of the ruined yet still dangerous City 17 is a good example of a classic Half-Life vista. Vistas are sweeping scenes where many elements of design come together. This one reminds the player of what he's accomplished in Episode 1 while setting up the threat that will hang over the rest of Episode 2. It establishes the mood with a stunning skybox and shader effects, shows off believable character responses, and also literally sets the episode into motion. When the player looks at the scene, a device called a look trigger sets off the portal storm, which causes the bridge to collapse, using Valve's new cinematic physics, which we'll be showcasing throughout the episode.
I hadn't noticed this before.
You idiot. That's Gordon Freeman. The Vortigaunt said he was on the way. Dr. Freeman, Alex Vance is over here. The Vort's trying to patch her up.
Griggs and Sheckley started off as minor characters who were just used to explain the setup for the turret battle. Once done, they died fairly quickly, leaving the players alone to fend off the antlion swarms. We found this left players unsure of their defensive strategies and would force them to visually survey the cavern before setting up defenses. So we made the two characters stronger and had them yell out their state to players, and even suggest what openings the players should cover. This gave players extra time to set up a defensive strategy before the antlions arrived. This also let us ratchet up the intensity level by slowly heightening their reaction to the threats. Once we realized this worked, we decided to separate the characters and create an Abbott and Costello style team, to do little bits during the downtime the players were using to set up their defenses. We ended up with entertaining character moments that also cued the player on game state and events.
Griggs and Sheckley's comment about not stepping on the grubs was originally intended for comedic effect, and to suggest that, as usual, Gordon Freeman had brought trouble in his wake. However, we found that some players took this comment too literally, and would spend the rest of the level avoiding grubs in fear of spawning more antlions. We experimented for a short time with making this an actual mechanic, bringing in antlions whenever grubs were squished, but this had several negative results. It made the tunnels far too difficult, and cancelled out any benefit the player got from squishing grubs for health. We decided to keep the grub behavior simple and rewarding.
The breach is a rough, earthen tunnel, which many playtesters tended not to notice when the attack began. They felt they had been told to defend only the 3 marked tunnel openings. We addressed this confusion by changing the sequence of antlion waves so that the second attack came through the breach. Players then understood that all 4 openings were vulnerable.
In Half-Life 2 and Episode 1, players learned that turrets will always attack them, unless they are reprogrammed by allies. We needed a new visual way to instantly show that these new turrets are also allies, and decided to hark back to the aircraft nose art of World War II. The elaborate turret design also hints at how bored Griggs and Sheckley must have been sitting down here by themselves. The turret battle design went through many changes. Early stages had the player controlling 3 turrets and not ever having to fight antlions directly. After playtesters complained of not having anything to do during the battles, we changed the number of turrets to leave the player underhanded when in later rounds all the tunnels are active. This creates a better mix of resource management and combat. Later, we added this tweaked version of the hopper mines to give players yet another tool for fighting the onslaught.
We experimented a lot with the ammunition for this level. Originally, we had a single ammo crate containing submachine gun bullets, positioned down near the elevator. Playtesters, however, seemed happier using a shotgun in this battle, so we added a crate full of shotgun shells and moved both crates to the top area, so players could easily trade off between different styles of gunplay.
In the prototype for this level, the Vortigaunt cleared the way by blasting apart a rock pile. After a new model was created for the generator, we decided to exploit the Vortigaunt's natural relationship with electricity by having him charge the generator much the way he charges Gordon's suit. We were then able to use generators as Vortigates throughout the level to indicate areas the player could only enter with the Vortigaunt's assistance.
もしかしてこれクリアしないとダメ。そう、そう。
Freeman. It is well.
At the climax of the turret battle, we introduced the Vortigaunt in full-on action mode. The player can and should take part in the battle, but we were very careful to make it fairly easy for him to hang back and enjoy watching the Vorts clear the room of antlions. We wanted to show off the Vortigaunt's new abilities and get the player excited about the role they were going to play as active allies in the struggle against the Combine.
Got some supplies over here if you need them. Health and ammo, that sort of thing.
In Half-Life 2, Lou Gossett's voice lent itself to a mystical and mysterious characterization of the Vortigaunt. In Tony Todd's reading for Episode 2, we heard new possibilities for a Vortigaunt who's more of a mystic martial artist. With new attack animations and companion behavior, we worked with Tony to build the Vortigaunt into a powerful ally, a full-on alien ass-kicker.
Every Half-Life game so far has started with Gordon Freeman weaponless. Assuming some players had just played through Episode 1, while others might not have played it at all, we had to decide how long we should spend parceling out new weapons and providing adequate time to player practice with each one. In this case, we decided to hand the player a number of weapons all at once, figuring most would have mastered their gunplay in previous episodes. We held off doing a lot of deliberate training until we began introducing newer modes of combat later in the episode.
Hey, Freeman, come on over here. Hey, Doc, over here. This sensor will light up if an antlion's coming down this tunnel. More lights mean more antlions. When a tunnel lights up, we move a few turrets in front of it. Pretty simple, eh, Doc?
Hey, Doc. On your way here, you weren't followed, were you?
Don't listen to him, Doc. We're on edge because this place is riddled with antlions.
The Vort says as long as we don't step on their grubs, they shouldn't hear us this far from the nest.
Yeah, well, that's a theory I'd rather not test. We're down to our last two turrets, and even these are held together by baling wire and duct tape at this point. Nice to but I wouldn't exactly. Hey, Griggs, you might want to show Dr. Freeman where we keep the supplies, huh?
Oh, yeah. Down there by the Vort. Everything you need for doctoring. They're coming. One light.
Let's move. We have to defend the Vort. Hey, Doc, you ever seen an antlion before? Over here, Shackley! We got the breach!
be okay as long as they stick to one tunnel.
Dr. Freeman, you take care of the turrets.
They get bugs! No offense, Freeman, but things were pretty quiet until you showed up. Swarm at 24!
Come on, let's go!
I'm coming! Cover me, Shaq! Turret down!
Come on, try to keep up.
Let's just stay here. We got 36.
You handle 12, Doc. If you see a bug on me, how about you try to get it off? Yeah, oh, sure. They're only like 5 feet tall. What?
Shackley!
What?
Forget it.
We got the breach. Hey, Doc, you cover 24.
Oh, God, they're coming from everywhere! More than 12! I got 10!
Yeah, well, we all got 10. There's hundreds of them. Hey, Doc, you cover the breach.
There are 12!
We got 24.
What's wrong with that hole? There can't be many more.
What the hell makes you think that? We got 12.
Incoming at 36. And the breach. And 24. Oh, God, they're coming from everywhere. nest must be bigger than we thought!
2 lights!
We can't hold out much longer!
We'll take 36!
Got to watch all the tunnels, Freeman! We can do this, right, guys? Get ready. Oh God! Get ready! 3 lights! This is gonna be bad!
Hey, it's the Vorts! They made it!
Yeah.
You're free.
I was trying to scare you, Shaq.
Our delay. Regrettable. We killed many antlions. Yet many more remain. We must attend to the Alex Vance. There is no time. More antlions approach. We shall quiet them.
Shit! The whole place is lit up!
We have exhausted their immediate. Now to the next matter of urgency. The Alex Vance. Her injuries are grave. This will necessitate deep submersion into Vortessians. Indeed. We require the larval extract. Oh, yes. The extract. Yes. Agreed.
I will make the journey to seek the extract, deep within the nest, in the sacred nectarium. But I cannot hope to bring it back alone.
We must remain to keep the Alex Vance alive. Please, Freeman, join me. Yes, take the Freeman. There is no finer companion. So well stated.
One of the three main themes for Antline areas, the mines were a plausible setting for light sources, mechanical obstacles, and resupply. Visually, the mines offer good contrast to the natural cave areas and the more organic spaces the worker antlines have carved out with acid secretions.
In this vista, we release the player from the confines of the subterranean world and thrust them into a vast open space on a scale rarely seen in our previous games. The narrative takes advantage of this scale as well. With our allies at close range and our enemies on the distant bridge, we are reminded of the personal stakes and the larger threat, all in one short scene.
We tried several different ways of showing the advisor traveling with the Combine forces. We started off with an advisor pod flying over the troops, much as they flew from the Citadel at the end of Episode 1. However, we didn't want to give the impression that those pods were anything but emergency escape units. They were not meant to be self-powered flying crafts that could be piloted around in future episodes. We ended up with the solution you see here. APCs are pulling a structure holding an inert advisor pod. This lets the player study the advisors at different points in their life cycle. They see the main stages of the advisor's metamorphosis, from harmless larvae into powerful and highly mobile monsters.
What are we waiting for?
Sometimes very small changes can make a big difference. Originally, these troops all marched in lockstep, using the same walk animation. This looked extremely robotic. We took a second walk animation that had been done for this troop skeleton, a more upright, casual walk, and programmed each soldier to randomly blend between the two walk cycles as he crossed the bridge. This 30-minute change made a huge difference in the scene.
Most of our dramatic scenes are constrained in such a way that the player can't progress until the scene is over. For example, there might be a gate that only Alex or a Vortigaunt can open. In this scene, where the Vortigaunt and Alex first see the Combine marching on White Forest, we simply placed a few barrels to block the way while Alex and the Vortigaunt speak. With just this slight impediment, every playtester stayed and watched the scene as intended, so no explicit gate was needed.
Alex's model underwent some upgrades for Episode 2. We added 2 new holes to her jacket, courtesy of a hunter, and dirtied her texture up a bit to show wear and tear. We also increased her polygon count, and to help with her jacket, we added shoulder blades to her back so that it flexes better when she lifts her arms. Additionally, we reconnected her belt so that instead of being rigidly attached, it now flexes and slides around more. A lot of this stuff you won't even notice, it'll just look right. Yeah, that's Alex. She's wearing a jacket. You wouldn't even think about it. It's easy to have the computer draw something stiff and awkward, but doing that pulls you out of the game. You stop believing in the characters. They just become icons. Our goal is to make our characters simply look natural, but to do that requires lots and lots of work and tons of new technology. The irony is, if we've done our job, you won't even notice. It'll just look right.
Initially, we built this area around the sand traps mechanic from Half-Life 2, warning the player that stepping on sand would trigger swarms of antlions. Soon after the warning, however, the safe islands of rock ran out, and the player was forced to run across the sand as quickly as possible. Players were confused by this and upset because Alex and the Vortigaunt would simply say they had no choice and head straight across the sand. To solve this, we decided to stage the combat with safe zones around Thumpers instead.
This vista is one of the largest open outdoor areas we've tackled in our games. When rendering such an area in real time, it's necessary to use various level of detail techniques made available to us by the source engine. For example, the distant foliage and Combine enemies are rendered with far fewer polygons than they would be if they were meant to be viewed up close. Additionally, the organic shapes used to model the rocky outcroppings and valley floor below use complex shading operations to combine a relatively modest amount of texture data. This trade-off, which requires a manageable amount of texture data, allows us to use more polygons, enabling us to represent more organic shapes which are in contrast to the orthogonal forms common to our traditional urban environments.
Early in the development for this level, we used an animation for Alex that showed her as clearly injured as she ran along behind the player. This really slowed her down, however, and playtesters did not enjoy waiting for her to catch up or going back to retrieve her. To address this, we started a recovery in the preceding map to make sure she was healthy enough to run at a regular speed before reaching this area.
Let's keep moving.
Some testers had trouble realizing when they were doing damage to the antlion guards, so we've added a bleeding effect that grows more serious as the guards' hit points decline. This kind of visual feedback makes more intuitive sense to the players. It suits the biological nature of the creature and frees us from having to rely upon spoken explanations of gameplay.
This scenario required significant changes to the antlion guard behavior. Players of past games were used to dealing with only one guard in a confined space and without anywhere to hide. In this scenario, the player had a safe zone but couldn't remain there to accomplish their goals. One change we made to the guards was in altering how they throw objects at the player. Originally, they shoved objects directly toward the player at high speeds. These objects were really hard to dodge, and if you weren't paying complete attention, you could easily be blindsided and killed. The guards now hurl objects along an arcing trajectory, which not only gives the player a greater opportunity to dodge, but looks awesome. The player gets to see the guard launch a car from 100 feet away, then step aside just as it crashes to the ground where they were standing.
We wanted to create a tension between Gordon and the Antlion Guardians that would develop over several levels and only resolve out here in the open. In order to differentiate this Guardian from the others the player had encountered throughout Half-Life 2 and Episode 1, we changed his texture to a glowing green. This gave the player the satisfaction of revenging himself on the creature that had chased him through the underground lair.
吹き出しなさそうだな。よし、次。
Hop in, Gordon. Let's hit the road.
いいのか。
Should have known it wouldn't be as easy as just driving down the road. Looks like we'll have to take a detour. If it's working, we need to send a warning to White Forest. They've got no idea the Combine's heading their way. Nobody's home. Wonder how long it's been deserted. They must have a transmitter in one of these buildings.
Even though this compound appears open and non-linear, we're striving for a fairly reliable progression of events so that we can fine-tune pacing. The building on the right is bright and eye-catching, with the intention of drawing the player there first. The entrance to the ruin building is around the back, so that initial exploration through the center of the compound tends to lead to the radio room first. The drop-down entrance from the roof of the ruin building also helps us pace the experience, because players are cautious about committing to a space until they've explored the alternatives.
Let's look for a transmitter room. I'll keep a lookout while you poke around inside.
やった。よかった。
This room is designed so that the player will notice the main set of plugs right away, but is less likely to spot the second set at first. One end of the long cable is already plugged in, encouraging the player to grab the loose end and put it into the powered socket. This makes the faulty wire break loose and spark. With the power on, players try to return upstairs only to discover that now the elevator needs power. At this point, they look about more carefully and discover the elevator sockets. The short cord is tucked next to the elevator sockets, so that they're likely to try to use it there first, before realizing they need a longer one. Given this fairly reliable progression of events, we were able to write a limited number of lines for Alex so that she could react each time the puzzle changed state.
Gordon, hide.
The scene where Alex sees the hunters for the first time since her injury was meant to be a turning point for her as a character, and an emotional highlight for the episode, both for Gordon and for Alex. One reason we had a hunter injure Alex in the beginning of the episode was so she could have a strong emotional reaction to the creatures, and use the start of combat as a way of building a good character moment. Alex's previous encounter has given her a visceral fear of hunters, but now she has to make a conscious choice to get past her fear and into the right state for fighting them. She uses anger to get there. We also use Alex's intensity to draw the player's attention to subtler aspects of the scene, getting the player in position for the best view of the hunters as the attack gets underway.
Oh, the other thing that's so great about acting for video games, and I guess voiceover in general, but for this particular game, is so amazing. I don't have to worry about hitting my mark, or playing to the camera, or forgetting my lines. That's usually my biggest thing. is you can see the wheels turning on camera because I'm trying to keep up with my lines. But this, they're all right there, so I don't even have to worry about that, and I can just worry about the delivery, the emotional vibe that needs to come across, and just be the sense of immediacy. I don't even have to worry about the words. So that takes a whole other level off to let the actor just get down and into the work, which is really, really great, which is why I love this job.
In earlier versions of the Hunter intro, the hunters burst physically into the room by shouldering their way through the door. As the hunter's flechette attack came online, we decided this was no longer appropriate. Now that the hunter had an effective ranged attack, having him burst into the room with you actually put him into his least viable tactical position during your very first encounter, making him seem ineffective and a bit dumb. The current design is intended to showcase his abilities while giving the player the time and space to understand the situation before pushing out into close combat.
This area was designed to train the player in the art of hunter combat, and during the development process it changed continually to suit the hunter's behavior. The first hunter prototypes could be killed only by the blunt impact of physics objects. Therefore, to make sure the player learned this technique, we trapped him in this area with one hunter and kept him locked in until he defeated it. Upon the hunter's death, reinforcements broke down the gate and doors, opening up the arena. As time went on and the hunter was modified to make it vulnerable to all types of damage, our grip on the player gradually relaxed, permitting freedom of movement and a wider range of tactics right from the start of the encounter.
Wow. We should get our warning out and then keep moving. That was probably a scouting party. Let's go find out what we just powered up. You weren't.
전투 전부 돼요. 오케이.
Kidding. We'll be back on the road in no time.
Originally, there was a second driving section between the chopper battle and the autogun trenches. The pacing felt wrong, so we decided to remove it and connect the end pieces so that the train yard opens directly into the garage.
What do you think, Gordon? Maybe while I'm getting the car fixed up, you can see about clearing up that roadblock.
All the fresh zombies coming out of City 17 have kept them pinned down. It's just a matter of time till the troops start pushing this way. If you think you're up to it, we'll let you out there.
Huh. He's always up for it. Right, Gordon?
We got a trap door up here where I can let you over to the other side. That way you'll get to see the gun before it sees you.
나한테 너무 아플게. 나는 벽. 나는 묘진이야.
Good luck taking out that auto gun.
샤니야 뛰어라.
Playtesters often failed to recognize that they could scramble through windows while they were avoiding being shot by the autogun. We added this window exit and forced players to use it so that they would learn to rely on windows to get around.
Some playtesters didn't realize that they would need to climb over trucks to navigate around the autogun emplacement, so we added this truck jump early in the level as a form of introductory training.
In order to train players that crouching through the trenches is critical for survival, we did several things. First, we start the player in the safe position by forcing them to crouch under the fence to enter the area. Once inside, they learn by watching the zombies. Upright zombies are gunned down, but their torsos are free to roam in the shadow of the junk. Some playtesters believe that while the guns were busy shooting zombies, they would be able to move freely. To counteract this impression, we increased the number of guns from 1 to 3, making it clear that there was always going to be a gun free to shoot the player.
Zombies serve the double purpose of horror and humor. Here, since we knew where the player's view would be, we added a comical scene of a fast zombie torso running away from a soldier.
The original design for this sequence involved shutting down the cannon by flipping a switch. That was neither obvious nor rewarding. We decided to let the player blow it up instead, which gave us another opportunity to use our cinematic physics.
Hey, Gordon, the car's ready. Come on back and we'll get going.
Once we added the onboard radar to the Strider battle at the end of the episode, we needed to train the player in its use well before they reached that area. This garage was already in the game as a place where Alex needed to stay while the player went alone through the autocannon area. It was a perfect fit to have the mechanic rebels add their radar to the car while Gordon was busy somewhere else.
Alex! Dr. Freeman, you made it.
Hey! Boy, are we glad to be here.
Yeah, we heard you ran into a little trouble out there. Combine's been trying to hit in the front door. I think they learned their lesson. Do you mind if we keep dog patrolling out here?
Not at all. You heard him, dog. I'm gonna go see Dad. I'll catch up to you later. You take care of yourself.
I don't think Eli knows you're here yet. He's in Silo 1 access unit, right through here.
Shall we?
Oh.
I don't feel anything anymore.
What now?
Oh no, what's that?
Well, now what?
All right, back to work, everyone. It's just another false alarm in the secondary silo.
Same old Dr. Magnuson.
So, you ever used an AR before?
In sketching out the scenes for the episode, we noticed a lack of interpersonal conflict between the characters who had survived from Half-Life 2. Alex, Eli, and Dr. Kleiner have a lot of affection for one another, as you will see in many of the scenes. And while we all value the benefit of strong, positive relationships, we were happy to have Dr. Magnuson around to get irritated by all the hugging.
Yeah? It means a lot to me to have a multi-ethnic heroine. When I was growing up, that didn't happen a whole lot. I mean, maybe Storm from X-Men, I don't know. But it wasn't commonplace. So to have someone that's my type be in that kind of position is really, really amazing. I mean, I think it's a popular trend now, but that wasn't always the case. Really? I'm fine. Where's Dr. Kleiner? We should get this data in right away.
Okay.
Yes,
He'll be glad for a chance to get out of the silo. This way, Gordon. When you and Magnus and Gordon think they were still competing for grant money.
Some things never change. Do we have any idea how long until the super portal's active?
We don't know for certain. We're keeping an eye on it.
And what about the Combine? Will we be able to launch before they attack?
It's gonna be close. All it would take is one Strider to destroy our rocket. But we're ready for it.
I'm sorry we couldn't get here any sooner, Dad.
Don't worry, sweetheart. We're gonna make it. I'm just so glad to have you back.
I'm glad to be back.
Away from my nose cone!
Now listen here, Magnuson.
Due to the number of characters involved in this scene and the cramped spaces, we found that the actors were constantly pushing the player around in order to get to their marks. We developed some tech that allowed the actors to gauge the position of the player and the other actors, and choose among a selection of marks. This not only solved the congestion problem, but made scenes feel more dynamic.
They're inseparable.
The data, people, the data! Kleiner, are you going to sync up the satellite, or should I postpone?
Dr. Magnuson was the result of a decision to bring forward another signature character from the original Half-Life, along the lines of Dr. Kleiner and Barney. As we developed the character, We kept referring back to this line from Half-Life to keep us on track.
Gordon doesn't need to hear all this. He's a highly trained professional. We've assured the administrator that nothing will go wrong.
Though we liked the character who came into focus, we found that this voice was sounding too much like a caricature for our increasingly grim and realistic world. We like to hire actors with the natural voices that we want for our characters, as opposed to hiring actors to create voice characterizations. In John Aylward, we found someone who could deliver the brusque arrogance of the original lines, and also take the character forward into some of the richer and subtler opportunities we foresee for him.
For God's sake, hurry.
If you listened closely to the Vortigaunts in the Antlion tunnels, you may have heard one of them using a complaint very similar to Dr. Magnuson's here. Their affinity to Dr. Magnuson has caused some of his mannerisms to spread among them by way of their low-grade telepathy.
Nesting in the tracks. I do not know how I am supposed to concentrate with all of this racket. Freeman, you're not doing anything. Make yourself useful and find out what the hell is going on in there.
Gordon, if you don't mind, I'd feel better if you had a look.
Catch up with us when you're done.
Freeman! The blast doors will have sealed due to the alert, so you'll have to go through the bottom of the launch tube. I'll open this hatch to let you down. Now, once you're down there, I'll have Uriah let you into the secondary silo.
Rather than just make up something that would fit our fantasies of a rocket, we designed Dr. Magnuson's rocket around blueprints from the Titan family of missiles. Grounding the details of our world in reality, making them as precise as possible, makes the invented, fantastic elements seem that much more believable.
Attention personnel, this is Dr. Magnuson. Since the secondary silo staff seem incapable of solving their little crow problem, you will be happy to hear we have put the popular Dr. Freeman on the job. We all look forward to his remedy, and I look forward to hearing the staff's excuses for why they couldn't handle it themselves. Thank you for your patience.
We intended White Forest to offer a change of pace from the constant action that preceded it. A few moments to reunite with old friends and get to know Dr. Magnuson. A breather before the big battle ahead. However, our first version of the sequence was a logjam of long, talky scenes. Gordon and Alex stood around listening to Kleiner and Magnuson argue at the top of the silo, then rode an elevator to the bottom of the shaft while Dr. Kleiner lectured them about rockets and satellites. They wandered into a control room to watch Dr. Mossman's transmission, and then hatched a plan to get her back. We knew we were in trouble when even the authors of the scene were bored, and no one had the patience for the revelations that followed. We divided the sequence into a number of smaller pieces that could be interleaved with solitary exploration and some combat. This required rebuilding the path and moving the control room upstairs, where the transmission scene became a reward for surviving the secondary silo. As a result of these changes, the White Forest experience is more varied, the narrative comes in digestible portions, and the players are able to play at their own speed, rather than being led by the nose the entire time.
This steam jet is an example of something we call a mechanic refresher. It's meant to refresh the player's memory on how to perform a certain task they may not have used in a while. In this case, we remind the player about using valves to turn off steam in a relaxed environment. In the map just ahead, this trick will be fresh in their mind, and they'll be far more likely to realize they can use steam jets tactically when they encounter them in a combat situation.
Well met.
In Half-Life 2, when we first decided to make Vortigaunt ally characters, we played around with having
最後の1個はちょっとすいません。
The launch is in its final stages. The portal's close to open, but Dr. Magnuson sure will be in time to stop it.
Oh, there's another bit of cruft we can ignore. Support equipment powered down. Satellite payload powered and ready. Hold on a moment, Kleiner. Ah, Freeman. Well, I see the Magnuson device performed flawlessly. I feel compelled to thank you personally for saving my rocket. So, thank you. Well, that's enough chit-chat. I've got a rocket to launch.
Wow. For a minute there, I thought you were gonna get a hug.
Already closed out launch support equipment. Checklist.
Let's go to the control room. We can get a great view of the launch from there. It constantly amazes me how many people are involved in creating her, because everyone who is involved seems to have the same vision for her. And for so many people to have one mind about a character, it blows my mind. I mean, very rarely do I get a piece of direction or script that doesn't ring true to how I feel about Alex, and vice versa. And strangely enough, as soon as I try something out and something doesn't ring true, I'm usually not the first person to say it, even though I might be feeling it, somebody else will say it. And it's just, I guess, a testament to how in tune everybody is about what kind of person Alex is, and what she would do, what she wouldn't do, and, you know, what kind of girl she is.
No, of course not.
No. Avionics to internal power.
While you were out having fun, I found an old helicopter that I was able to get working. I've got it all packed up and ready to go. Never a dull moment, huh?
Wait a moment. I'm seeing a payload anomaly of approximately 8.5 pounds.
Well, that's within tolerance. Certainly not worth scuttling.
We're back!
At last.
Ah, Gordon. Hell of a job you did out there, son.
Let's not forget.
The launch of Magnuson's rocket ties directly into the rocket Gordon launched at Black Mesa. Here, the portal satellite array that opened a gate to Zen in Half-Life 1 has been repurposed to shut the Combine out. This is just another example of the way we constantly try to weave the old threads of the Half-Life story into the new episodes.
Now, I believe we're ready to start the auto sequence.
I believe Gordon should have the honor.
You'll hear no objection from me.
It's all yours, Gordon.
Silo doors open. Stations, everyone. Power to main thrusters. Steady on.
T-minus 10.
We're launching.
8, 7, 6, 5,
Steady.
4, 3, 2,
We did it!
We sure did.
Just gonna control myself.
Yes. Fantastic.
Deep breath. Deep breath. Now it is still too early to celebrate. We need to reach altitude and transmit the signal.
Too right. The clock is ticking.
We couldn't have cut it any closer if that was our intention.
It is going to work, right?
It has to.
Once the rocket is in range of the portal, we'll be able to switch on the xenium resonator.
Well, let's get outside. I'd like a better view of the fireworks.
There should be quite a show. Regrettably, I can't come out with you. Magnuson and I will need to keep a close eye on the rocket's trajectory.
Aren't you gonna see us off?
Just as soon as this is wrapped up, I wouldn't dream of letting you go without a proper goodbye.
Okay, I'll hold you to that. You too, Dr. Magnuson.
Indeed.
We'll catch up with you in a moment, sweetheart. Gordon, hold up a
Dog,
second.
there you are.
The more I think about that warning from our friend, the more I'm convinced it has to do with Borealis. Don't be deceived. That ship must never be used. You have got to destroy it, whatever the cost.
Where are you two? You're gonna miss it.
Be right there, Alex. Gordon, thanks for everything you've done. For Alex, for all of us. I couldn't be prouder if you were my own son. Now, when you get back, we've got a lot to talk about.
Come on!
Look at the portal! Has to work.
Episode 2's backgrounds or vistas are created in a manner that fuses traditional 2D animation techniques, using linear cards moving against each other to imply parallax, and a modern digital take which involves placing these cards in a 3D environment and manipulating their size and distance from camera depending on the scale needed. A series of cards can sit in front of a 3D skybox, and with the addition of atmosphere or fog, a realistic result can be achieved.
I'll bet the Combine aren't too happy right now.
You got that right, sweetheart. But we've got plenty to celebrate. Head off so soon. If only it weren't so critical.
It's okay, Dad. We'll find Judith and bring her back. Dog? Hey, where are you? What a nut. Don't go too far.
Developing the Half-Life episodes allows us to steadily flesh out the details in an ongoing cosmic struggle. Most of this conflict remains far in the background, but little by little, we are able to bring new elements up front. One of our goals for Episode 2 was to fully develop the grub-like advisors, first glimpsed in Half-Life 2. In Episode 1, they make several brief appearances but have no direct effect on the events in the game. In Episode 2, we deliberated on how soon to show them becoming active, and decided to pull back the veil in stages. Therefore, we first see them being hauled around by Combine troops, completely passive. Next, we see one waking up from incubation, still somewhat groggy, and beginning to discover its power. But by the end of the episode, the advisors come fully into their own, front and center, as characters with a huge impact on the story.
To create the Eli Dust Sequence, we talked it through in great detail, wrote up an outline with all the events we discussed, and then produced an animatic. We used rough sketches painted over screenshots and a variety of crude special effects and sounds to create a quick pre-visualization of how the scene would play out. Not only did this help us to converge on a shared vision for the scene, but by working rough, we were able to quickly iterate until we had a design worth implementing in the game.
The decision to kill Eli was not made lightly, and once we'd made it, we had to figure out how to make it meaningful. We'd already established Eli's frailty as well as his importance to the Resistance and Alex's devotion to him, so from a narrative point of view, the impact of his death seemed obvious. The hard part would be the execution. The advisor's ability to immobilize the player gave us a way to stage the scene. Then the animations and the sound design made it believable. But none of this would have been enough without inspired performances by Merle Dandridge and Robert Guillaume.
This final episode 2 scene was unbelievable. Before we even started working on it, the team sat me down and they kind of did a little show and tell of the rough animation that they had. And I think they were hesitant to show it to me, but just from that rough animation, I was so moved. I mean, just immediately moved to tears. I felt like I'd just been gut punched, and I immediately felt it. I was like, let's go. Let's get on this. So it shouldn't surprise me. It shouldn't surprise me by now because I've been working on Alex for so long now. But every time we come to the table to do a new scene or lay down some new material, I am always blown away. And this scene was just the epitome of that feeling. I was so pumped to get in there and start working on it. And they're always upping the ante and always taking it to the next level. But this time, this scene is different. Because this time, Alex loses. And I think this is it is a major sacrifice. You see her carrying around the wounds of her mother that she lost, but her dad made her who she is. Her dad taught her dad groomed her, and I think, most importantly, he loved her. And this script was a gift and a gut punch all in one. I don't know. when you give me something like that, it really motivates me to kind of try to knock it out of the ballpark. I love playing Alex, and I have to say, it's definitely my favorite acting job I've ever had, hands down.
はい、本日はここまでです。チャンネル登録、高評価、あとコメントもよろしくお願いします。できれば良かった点と悪かった点を書いてくださると嬉しいです。そして皆さんの中にこれをやってほしいと言ってくださるのであれば検討していきます。ご視聴ありがとうございます。また今度もお会いしましょう。さようなら。というか、ロードン区切りで吹き出しなくなってんのかな、これ。まあ、吹き出し、ここもあったよって言ってくださるのであれば、おまけでもう一回映してみようかなと思っております。では、さようなら。